John Wick plus Taken plus Pureflix. What does that equal?
My name is Aaron Beckman.
Beckman. Is it a good movie? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler-free review for Beckman. Now, I'm a Christian, and as a Christian, I want a good, solid Christian movie. And I love the idea of an action-packed, intense Christian movie beginning to end. So when I first saw this trailer for Beckman, two thoughts went through my mind. Thought number one, that looks mediocre. But thought number two, I'm curious. Because I would love to see a Christian film in that revenge action genre. That's not preachy, that's not cheesy, but tells me a solid action-packed story that keeps me enthralled from beginning to end and throws in a good, solid Christian message. Did this movie do that? Yeah, kinda. I'm giving it a C+. I thought overall it was a good step in the right direction. Maybe a little bit of a shaky step, but a good step in the right direction if this is something that Christian movies want to pursue in the future and take on this type of action genre. Now, kind of a positive and kind of a negative. It's kind of a mixture of both. This movie really does follow the pattern of John Wick and Taken almost to the letter, almost as if it was a formula written out. This movie follows that. You have Beckman, who was in this underworld and who was a top contract killer. He gets out of that underworld and something tragic happens that draws him right back in. It's his adopted daughter who gets kidnapped. So like Taken, it draws him in the way it drew Liam Neeson in. Or like John Wick, when those idiots came in and killed his dog and stole his car, and it draws John Wick back into that world out of sheer vengeance. And this is probably what it's closer to. Beckman enters this world out of sheer vengeance to get his daughter back and to take vengeance on those that took his daughter from him. And so the thing that sets it apart from John Wick and sets it apart from Taken is the Christian aspect of this. And so you have Beckman who wants to get out. And so he takes refuge in the church. In that process, he truly becomes a believer. He gets baptized. In fact, he even becomes a reverend. He becomes the pastor of that church. And I felt like in the beginning, one of the interesting aspects of this movie was him trying to reconcile his faith in receiving the free gift of God's grace with what he's done in the past. Because he was a John Wick style contract killer. He has killed a lot of people quite violently. And so he deals with the nightmares and the dreams, and he deals with the guilt. And I felt like they did a good job with Beckman and Tabitha. So Tabitha escapes this cult. She takes refuge in this same church. So really, she's kind of in that same position that Beckman was in. So as Beckman was trying to get out because he felt like a faker, in comes Tabitha like a godsend. And him helping her the same way the original reverend of that church helped him, it kind of draws him closer to God as he's trying to help her get out of her darkness and find the light. So it actually does a good job giving Beckman and Tabitha a good bond and a good father-daughter relationship, because he does adopt her as a daughter and thinks of her as a daughter and loves her as a daughter. So I feel like it does a good job with that. And that was probably one of the more interesting aspects. And then when she gets kidnapped by this cult and he gets drawn back into this world, you do see him wrestling. I mean, look at the trailer. It's violent. He kills people. So he kind of just naturally goes right back into it, but they replay in his head pieces of his sermons, things that the former reverend of that church said to him, things that he said to Tabitha. That was the most interesting point of this movie. It was kind of his struggle with his faith and the darkness. Will the darkness overcome his faith, or will his faith overcome that darkness? Now, one thing that they could have done better, when he's getting out, all he does is he quits calling the network, which is the people that gets him his weapons and stuff. He goes and takes refuge in the church and gets baptized, and nobody comes to mess with him. The only reason he gets back in is because Tabitha's past comes in and pulls her out, not his. And I felt like that was kind of weak, because one of the strong points of John Wick is he got out at a great cost.
I gave him an impossible task. The bodies he buried that day laid the foundation of what we are now.
So yeah, if Beckman had to perform a task to get out, it would have made it all the more similar to John Wick. But it was made pretty clear in this movie that there really is no way out. So it seems odd that nobody challenged him when he just got out. And if he did have to perform a task to get out, it would be more interesting him having that relationship with Jesus, having to deal with whatever foundation he laid for that world and overcoming that, forgiving himself. It would have, I think, deepened the struggle and deepened some of that character development. So was the action entertaining? Yes, it was. But I felt like John Wick has those moments where it's like shockers, where it's a little bit gory, it kind of builds up to something, and you're like, oh, I can't believe he just did that. I can't believe that just happened. And Beckman, it kind of ramps up to that and then pulls back. And I kind of wish they just wouldn't even ramp up. It's fine if they don't want to throw in some of those shocking moments where something goes through somebody's eye or something like it happens in John Wick. They don't have to do that. But it just felt like they would build up to it and then pull back from it. It's like, well, don't build up to it then. And I couldn't figure out, is it because it's a Christian movie, so they don't want to go that far into it? Or is it because they're just learning to do this and they're trying to figure out the staging, where to place the camera, and so it's kind of a learning process? So I didn't know which it was, but I'm leaning towards it's a Christian movie. So they would ramp up to some whoa moment and then pull it right back, and it would just come off a little fake, not as strong, and it'd be like, ah, man. Like, some of the fight choreography was good. Some of it just felt like it was fight choreography.
My name is Aaron Beckman.
The preacher.
You ask around about me. When you find out who I am.
The other thing that they could have built up a little bit more is the fear in Beckman's name. You could tell they tried to do it with this line right here.
Gonna let her go unharmed. It's your only chance to survive what's coming.
So you kind of get the idea. That's like the Liam Neeson phone call. That's that they're afraid of the name, or should be afraid of the name Beckman, the way they were afraid of the name John Wick. But John Wick just did a great job. Like, even before Keanu Reeves started fighting in that first movie, the way the bad guys would talk about John Wick, the way you could tell that that name gave them goosebumps, it built the anticipation of, what am I about to see?
Oh, John is a man of focus, commitment, sheer will.
So this movie opens with some action sequences with Beckman, and so we could see him fighting, but it doesn't do the same work that John Wick did, where it really just built up, where as soon as he said that name, it didn't give our bad guy goosebumps. Like, it wasn't a reputation that preceded him, and so it just didn't have that same epic feel when he's doing that phone call and he says, my name is Aaron Beckman, look it up. Like, it just didn't have that same feel that it had when the bad guys kind of trembled at the name John Wick. And then you do have the bad guy, William Baldwin. It's a Pureflix film. So every time there's a Pureflix film, it's like, where is there gonna be a Baldwin brother? Now, the villain being a cult leader, I think it's supposed to be representative of the fact that he's living in deepest darkness. And so Beckman coming up against him, it's kind of an outward picture of the internal struggle with Beckman fighting the darkness in his own life. So it's the light versus the dark. So here's this movie following heavily the revenge action film pattern of Taken and John Wick, but this was another way to kind of help them separate a little bit from that and do something a bit unique. It was good. I think it could have been developed a little bit more, but it was interesting. Like I said, C+. So it's not something I'm just saying, hey, this is great, go check it out. If you want to check it out, have the right expectations, and I think you can enjoy this movie. Now, would you agree with C+? If you've seen Beckman, would you go higher? Would you go lower? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian, and hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.